The most expensive month in sports history. Imagine spending $220 billion to host a party that lasts 30 days. Not $220 million, not $2 billion, $220 billion. That's more than the GDP of Portugal. And when the final whistle blew and the confetti settled, the host country was left with 8 empty stadiums, billions in debt, and a maintenance bill that arrives every single year, whether the seats are full or not. That was Qatar in 2022. And here's the part that will actually make you angry. FIFA, the organization that runs the whole show, walked away with billions in profit. The host country paid for everything and got almost none of it back. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how this arrangement works, why countries still compete desperately to be part of it, and why the most expensive stadium ever built for a World Cup is sitting in a city with no football team worth filling it. What a World Cup stadium actually costs to build. Let's start with the price tag, because the numbers are genuinely absurd. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, one of the 2026 World Cup venues, is the most expensive stadium ever built anywhere, at roughly $5.5 billion. For context, that's more than the entire GDP of some small nations. And that was privately financed. Most stadium costs aren't. Qatar spent $6.5 billion to build 7 technologically advanced stadiums and renovate another, as part of $220 billion in total World Cup preparation spending over 12 years. Brazil's 2014 World Cup incurred approximately $15 billion in costs, largely attributed to infrastructure. South Africa spent $1.1 billion to build 10 stadiums for the 2010 World Cup. Every 4 years, the number gets bigger. Every 4 years, the promises get louder. And every 4 years, the economic reality hits harder once the tournament ends. How FIFA actually makes its money. Here is the financial structure that almost nobody talks about. FIFA will collect an estimated $8.9 billion from the 2026 World Cup, while the 11 US cities hosting it could face a collective shortfall of upwards of $250 million. In the 2026 edition, FIFA is operating the tournament itself, dealing directly with host cities rather than through national federations. Under that arrangement, it controls essentially all of the revenue, from media rights and sponsorship to ticketing, hospitality, and merchandise. Read that again slowly. FIFA collects $8.9 billion. Host cities face a $250 million shortfall. That is not a coincidence. That is the business model. As Andrew Zimbalist, Professor Emeritus of Economics at Smith College, puts it, there are very, very significant costs to host cities. I think it's fair to say that none of them will benefit economically from the World Cup because they don't get the revenue, but they get the costs, which can run well over $100 million. So what exactly are cities paying for? Stadium upgrades, security, transit, infrastructure, hotels, road closures, and emergency services. All for a tournament that hands every dollar of broadcast rights, ticket sales, and sponsorship directly back to FIFA headquarters in Zurich. It is, in the most literal sense, the world's most profitable house guest. The white elephant problem. Now here's where it gets worse. The stadium doesn't disappear when the tournament ends. It stays, and it costs money every single year. The industry term for this is a white elephant. A massive structure that costs a fortune to maintain but generates almost nothing in return. The Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane, built for the 2010 World Cup to hold over 40,000 spectators in a city of just 500,000 people, hosted 4 matches during the tournament. Polokwane lacks a top-tier football team capable of financially sustaining the venue. With maintenance costs running into millions annually, the stadium represents a significant financial burden on local authorities. Brazil's Estádio Nacional Mané Garrincha in Brasília is one of the most expensive stadiums ever built. However, Brasília lacks a major football club capable of filling such a venue. Attendance for domestic matches remains low, leaving large sections of the stadium empty during events. How empty? The Mané Garrincha Stadium, which cost $550 million, recently drew only 400 spectators to a match, 400 people, in a 72,000-seat stadium. That seat was built for $7,600 and someone is paying to keep the lights on around it while it sits empty. The mayor of Rio de Janeiro put it plainly. When I look back on the 2014 World Cup, it is not good. Brazilians have not benefited from the tournament. There has been no legacy for them. The World Cup still makes them angry. There is regret that we even staged it. The tourism promise versus the tourism reality. The pitch that FIFA and host governments always make is simple. Tourism will pay for everything. Billions of visitors spending in hotels, restaurants, shops. The economy booms. The investment pays itself back. The 2014 tournament had an immediate positive impact, generating an estimated $1.2 billion in tourist spending. However, when the spotlight fades, the residual impacts often tell a different story. Brazil spent $15 billion. It got $1.2 billion in tourist revenue during the tournament. That's not a return on investment. That's a 92% loss on the opening weekend. A 2024 study found that Canadian host cities, Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal, could see $800 million in public spending for the 2026 tournament, with limited long-term economic impact. The tourists come. The tourists leave. The stadium stays. The debt stays. The maintenance bill arrives every January. Tournament or no tournament. The one model that actually works. Here's where it gets interesting, because one version of this business does make sense. And it's the model the 2026 World Cup is deliberately copying. The 2026 World Cup adopted an explicitly different philosophy from previous tournaments. All three host nations already possessed a deep inventory of large-capacity professional stadiums, including NFL venues with capacities exceeding 70,000, MLS facilities with strong football heritage, and established Latin American League grounds. The decision to rely exclusively on existing venues was both deliberate and economically significant. The 2026 venues split into clear camps. Privately funded venues include SoFi, MetLife, Gillette, Hard Rock, and Estadio Azteca. Publicly owned venues include AT&T Stadium, NRG Stadium, and Lincoln Financial Field. The pattern is striking. The two most expensive stadiums were built with private money, while many of the cheaper, older venues lean heavily on public funding. The World Cup is not a business opportunity for host nations. It is the most expensive form of national advertising ever invented. And the advertising bill is paid entirely by the people who can least afford it. The taxpayers who will drive past an empty stadium every morning for the next 30 years, long after the cameras are gone and the world has moved on. But somehow, the line of countries waiting to pay that bill never gets shorter. If you found this valuable, share it with someone who still thinks hosting the World Cup is a good deal. And drop in the comments, which country do you think got the worst end of this bargain?